Hello, and welcome to another episode of From Mrs. to Me. I'm your host, Crissy Freeman. I'm honored today to introduce to you my guest, Anne Marie Maloney. Anne Marie is a national board certified teacher and arts integration master teacher with a large school district. She amplifies student voices by teaching spoken word through her program, Poetic Voices. Her work on restoring Maryland Black luminaries and change makers is part of the educational resources at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum. She collaborated with the Smithsonian American Art Museum as part of University of Maryland Writing Project leadership team and as a spoken word artist at the National Portrait Gallery. Wow. Anne Marie is also founder of Becoming Enough, Becoming You, a Facebook community to provide a safe space for women to heal, grow, and embrace their self-worth as we journey towards transformation. She hosts a podcast about this life, letting go of mindsets and beliefs that no longer serve us and making decisions that lead to our changing lives. Wow, Anne Marie, there's more there, but you'll learn more about her as we talk. Anne Marie, welcome to the From Mrs. to Me podcast.
Well, thank you, Crissy. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate you and what you are doing on Mrs. To Me.
Thank you. And same, the work that you are doing it aligns so
Woo!
nicely with this podcast, and it's so needed and so beautiful. So as we talk about, though, on this podcast, the transformation from Mrs. to Me after divorce, what it really is it's about identity, right? Sort of, who am I outside of this marriage? And so many women go through this, and it can be really scary, but it's also an opportunity for change. And so, can you start by telling the audience about your journey of transformation to discovering you after your divorce?
Absolutely. Crissy, do you happen to love gospel music?
Oh,
Oh,
yes. Who doesn't?
I love gospel
I like to
music.
dance, so that's why I
Yes,
love gospel music. Yes.
we are like-minded souls. We are kindred souls. There's a gospel artist. Her name is Yolanda Adams. Yolanda Adams had a song out many, many years ago, Open Your Heart. And the first line is, alone in a room, just me and you. And she's saying this to God. Okay, we alone. Let's have a conversation. I bring up that song because that is the song that was playing in my mind. It's about 11 years ago now when I had had enough. I literally walked out of my house, beautiful home, two-story home, a break. We had built it together, so on and so forth. I walked out. I couldn't I couldn't handle it anymore. I had nowhere to go. It's the middle of the night. So I go into a hotel room and I'm literally alone in the room. I'm telling God, okay, it's me and you now. What
Here we
we gonna
are.
do here? Okay, what we gonna do? I made a decision. I've been back and forth for many, 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 many years. And I said, it's me and you. And so I need to be able to trust you, God. And
Mm,
trust God, I did. So, in terms of identity, I was in the marriage just about my whole adult life because I was married right after graduation from college. And
mm,
so it was 25 plus years. So when I say my whole adult life, my identity was tied up and connected with someone else. My transformation came, it was a process that I moved from placing it in other people to placing it into God.
oh, yes.
In order to do that, in terms of the nitty gritty and how I did that, I believe there's a connection between the mind, body, and soul. So, Chrissy, I feel that all of the things that I was going through was in my body. So I was sort of on autopilot. I'm going to work, and you know how there could be parts of you that's highly functioning? At least in my mind, I was highly functioning. I was still
Right.
doing things right. I don't know in terms of people's perception of me during that time. I'm an educated by the way. So I was going to work and I was functioning. But when I would come home, one of the things that I remember in the apartment that I eventually found is that I would get on the treadmill. And I'm not a runner, I'm not an athlete. And at that time, I literally walked it out. I
Yeah.
literally walked, ran on that treadmill. And lucky for me, because it was an exercise room in the apartment complex, I literally, sometimes I had on headphones, sometimes I didn't. And I blasted that gospel music.
Oh, I love
and
it.
and I worked it out. It's just like it was like a shedding of layers. So the whole process of transformation is that you have to shed, you have to make some space. You have
Yeah.
to let go of stuff. And so I had to shed things like people pleasing. I had to shed things like, what are people going to say? What are they going to comment? And people impose their expectations onto you. Let it go. Me running on the treadmill. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's me and God. And of course, when you shed things, you now have to fill your space up with something else. Okay. So filling up the space, and tell me if I'm going too long because
No,
sometimes I
no, this
ramble.
is
Okay.
exactly where I
So,
want you to go.
okay. So when you let go, if you need something to replace what have been let go. And I started to replace the people pleasing with affirmations, for example.
Mm,
I started to replace I'm not good enough with I am confident. I am, I am a woman. you know, this is what I have done. This is who you are. And it became almost a saying in terms of saying to God, I'm your daughter.
mm.
You are looking after me. You are taking care of me. I trust you. I believe you to guide me. So I began to seek out affirmations. And the affirmations, anytime a negative thought will come into my mind, there is an affirmation to rebut that. I'm a child of the King. I can do this. I can do hard things. All things
Yes.
work together for good. I said those things over and over. And one more is there was a morning that I woke up and I don't even know who I was speaking to. I just would say, I love you. There's nobody else in the room. I wasn't talking to God necessarily at that point. And these are the three words. I just kept saying, I love you. And as the weeks went by, I'm just like, I guess I'm saying it to myself.
Yes. And you know what? God is love, right? And we are all love. And that is the message at the end of the day is it's everything that you said is so beautiful. And because I think so many of us are walking around looking externally to make sure that
Mhm.
we're doing it right. And why are we looking outside of ourselves when really what we need is to be able to love ourselves enough to be able to express who we are at our core? Because
Mm-hmm.
that is the love, right? That is expressing everything from our heart. And what I love about affirmations and you
Yes.
using affirmations is it was also for me part of my healing journey, which was I had to start every single day. I would put a sticky note on my mirror when I was brushing my teeth, and it was an affirmation. And every day after I would finish brushing my teeth, I would look directly at myself in that mirror and I would say that affirmation out loud. And then I started putting them all around the house, and
Yes.
it really does. It's like when you have those words and you're saying that to yourself, it's, gosh, talk about the outpouring of just love for yourself. It just shifts
Mhm.
all of that. So thank you so much for sharing that, because I
It
think
shifts
that,
the energy.
yeah, and it's right there for all of us to use. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to go out, and sign up for this big course. It's, how do we speak to ourselves in a loving way and continue to affirm that? So I
And I
love.
see one right over your shoulder now too. You have coolest mom ever.
That's right.
Woo!
That's right. That's right. My kids gave that to me,
Yes.
and then my hummingbird is, I absolutely love hummingbirds. They just are something that lights me up. And so I surround myself, as I see you do too, with all the things that bring me joy and that remind me of who I am and what I love about
Absolutely.
myself. So
Absolutely.
I love that. So one of the things is, the premise of the work that you are doing is around, becoming enough or becoming you and healing those inner wounds, right? So, can you tell me more about this and why it's important as we think about self worth and transforming our lives?
Absolutely. I don't know if it's unique to women or not. I don't know the man's perspective so much. But I know as women, we are always striving. We are always working. We wear multiple hats and we do so holistically. What I mean by this is that we're not compartmentalized. If something is going on at work, that impacts me at home. I prefer it didn't, but it
Right.
does. So there's the work home situation. If I have a disagreement with my kids, or there's conflict or tension there, that impacts my mood or my attitude, and so on and so forth. So that's what I mean by holistically.
Mm,
And we've grown up with this idea of being perfect.
yes.
Let that sink in. Being perfect. Being perfect as in absence of mistakes. Being perfect as in I need to make sure that this is okay. I need to make sure that my friends are okay. I need to make sure that my family is okay. I need to take care of the pets that I love so much and is so much part of my life. I have a schedule that I need to follow. I need to be able to do everything, and not just that, to do it well,
Yeah.
okay? And to do it perfectly. And I don't know if this happens to you, Crissy, but when somebody gives me feedback because I didn't do something correct, it's not that I'm insulted or offended by it, so much so as it makes me feel like I'm inadequate.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
I internalize the remark instead of thinking of feedback, oh, that's an area for me to improve. I internalize it. I'm inadequate. I should have thought of that. I should have included that. A lot of shoulds. There's a lot of shoulds
Shoulds.
when you're
Oh,
trying to be
yes.
perfect. And then I did a Beth Moore study, and one of her studies, you know, Beth Moore, who's very popular and well known and leads, has a heart for women. And I'm thinking to myself, who told you that? One of her questions in one of her studies, it called The Quest, I believe. She was like, all these beliefs and framework, who told you that? Who told you you couldn't make a mistake? Who told you you have to do exactly as your parents did or
Right.
not? Who told you you have to be fantastic at everything? You know? So I started to challenge those belief systems. And here's another thing, going around on social media these days, there's this whole thing about the inner child. Okay.
Mm,
So, with the inner child, for your viewers, for your listeners, if you have an opportunity to work with someone to go into your inner child, it's different than working with a regular counselor, in terms of going for help. The inner child speaks specifically as you go back and you actually have conversations with the person that you used to be as a child.
yes.
Yes, you go back and you talk to the little girl and you find out and you listen to what the little girl is telling you. And it's a whole process. It's the person I worked with, Malisi Crawford. She guided me through the exercise of like sitting with her and also journaling. And journaling took on a whole different meaning because I've been journaling my whole life. You
Yes,
know,
same.
journaling is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
That's
It's
my
how we
middle
get it
name.
out.
I do just to get it out. That is
Yep.
what I do. But the difference is writing letters to the child.
Mhm.
And here's the clue. And no, I'm not crazy. I promise you, I'm not crazy. When your inner child responds and your inner child starts to speak, you realize that there's a voice, and
Mm,
your voice comes to the forefront. And recognizing that of yourself and then acknowledging it. So, doing some work with your inner child. And part of my journey also, um, we have attachment styles.
yes.
And so, in terms of that term, what it means is that our spirits, we connect with people. And sometimes, maybe when we first met our ex, we're in love. And all the warm, fuzzy feelings. And this person, uh, we think to ourselves, they complete me. We learn that that's not a true statement.
Oh, that
You are
couldn't
already
be
complete.
more wrong.
Let me
Yes.
tell you, you are already complete. You are already
Exactly.
enough.
Yes.
But we don't know that because we were young.
That's right. That's the lesson we learned.
That's the lesson. That's the lesson we need to tell everybody, that you are already complete and there's no such thing as somebody else completing you. However, where I'm going with this is that we have attachment styles. And for example, something that I discovered in the journey of becoming enough, of becoming myself, is that I have issues with abandonment. You
Mm,
know, um, I'm a I'm the youngest of five children. So I am the youngest who was left alone as the siblings, they left for good reasons. They left to go to college. They left
hmm.
to get their first apartments and their first relationships, and they moved out of the house. But here I was in the house by myself.
Yeah.
So, knowing that I had abandonment issues, that helped me to understand why I picked or gravitated towards the person I did, and
Yeah.
why I clung for years and years when I should have left earlier. So, knowing your attachment styles and doing your inner child work are two things that have been part of my journey. And I want to share that with the world, in terms of
Yeah.
becoming enough. I want everybody to know.
Yeah. Oh, there's such beauty in that because, you know, I think we're learning from our parents, right? I mean, of course, we're learning from our
Hmm.
parents, our upbringing, our siblings, whomever is around us.
Yeah.
from the time, we're an infant all the way up until, we become an adult. We carry that with us, right? And it's so interesting as we get older, we see that a lot of these decisions that we have made
Mm-hmm.
and the patterns that we keep repeating, they actually make sense when you go back and you look at that inner child work, right? And you do more work around that. It makes complete sense. But prior to that, you're just saying, why does this keep happening to me? Why
Yes.
do I keep making these bad decisions? I
Decisions.
don't understand it. It's like beating your head
Exactly.
against the wall over and over again. And
Yes.
you kept saying, you use the word shoulds. And I say that all the time because I had a grandmother and a mother, love them both dearly, but
Mm-hmm.
that was their mantra. And I think my grandmother said it to my mother all the time was, you know what you should do? You know what you should do? And then my mother
Mm-hmm.
took that on. You know what you should do? And it
Mm-hmm.
became part of like all of the women in our lives were trying to tell each other how to live their lives. And it's like,
Yes.
oh, time out, time out. No, no. What's so beautiful is that we all have these unique gifts and talents, and we don't need to suppress them so that we get in line. You talked about being perfect. It's like, who are we getting this view of perfection from?
Yeah. Who
Right?
told you that?
Who told me that doing it that way is perfect? Because it
Yes.
looks like it hasn't been easy for you either. So why do I think that's perfect? It's I love the saying, the phrase perfectly imperfect. Because I
Yes.
think we are all perfectly imperfect. And that's what makes it beautiful. So yeah, I love everything that you said about that. And I want to shift for a minute and talk a little bit about mindset because it's something I talk about a lot on this podcast. I talk about it in my Facebook community
Mm-hmm.
around the importance of mindset and shifting our mindset so that we can recognize those thought patterns, right? That
Mm-hmm.
we continue to keep us stuck in the
Mm-hmm.
same patterns. And shifting those, recognizing our thoughts and shifting those. So, can you tell me in the work that you do or the work that you've even done for yourself, what is it about mindset and why does it have such a big impact on healing and changing our lives, do you
Oh
think?
my goodness. It's like a portal, it's a gateway. I want to talk
Mm,
about houses and the house. Uh, that the marital property.
okay. Yep.
If we're going to use a legal term,
I love it.
uh, the marital property was gorgeous. Brick, 2-story, double staircase, double staircase, and in the living area, floor to ceiling is 2 stories, and these bay windows, gorgeous. And when we added the deck, that it was built, and everybody would come into the house, everybody looked at the house and they were just like blown away. The house was so gorgeous. And I thought to myself, I live in a gorgeous home. But if people only knew what happened in the home. So what we see is not necessarily what is occurring. I want to talk about the house because I knew that he wasn't going to leave, so I left. And
Mm,
then when it came to letting go, I let go of the house. I let go of the house that I had lived in for all of those years because the house was a material thing.
yes.
The house was something that had bound us. The house was something that was a symbol, and that symbol wasn't pleasant. So we have to be careful of what things we attach our spirit to and be able to be flexible. So, in terms of mindset shift, it becomes, where am I happy?
Mm,
Where do I find joy?
yeah.
Where where do I take responsibility for my life? That's the
Yes.
mindset shift. It literally comes down to, I am not going to ascribe my happiness to someone else anymore. I am not going to
Mm,
say I am happy because of someone else. My mindset shift was I am happy because of the things and person that I am and that
yeah.
of what I am becoming. And so how do I love myself imperfectly? That's a mindset shift.
Yeah.
So when you think of it on that global of a scale, it's our perspective in terms of what we look for. Another key to unlocking the mindset is what I call hunt for the good. Some I've heard
Mm.
it expressed as God winks,
Mm,
but a lot of every day that I wake up, I have the opportunity to be grumpy, or I have the choice to hunt for the good. I have the choice to go forth on the day, and let's face it, all of us get stressed. All of us have a million things to do. And for me, a mindset shift is I get to do these things.
yeah.
Okay. I, instead of, oh my God, it's Monday, I have to go to work, I get to go to work. I get to have the opportunity to pay my mortgage on where I live now. Whereas when I walked out in the middle of the night, I didn't even know where I was going to be. So I
Yeah.
get to pay this house note that I have peace.
Yeah.
Okay. So the mindset shift is what good in your day can you find because God is talking to you all the time. God is communicating to you. If you're an athlete or you like the outdoors, I get to go outside and walk. A
Mm,
year ago, Crissy, I was laying on my couch because I had total knee replacement. And I thought to myself, um, doctors, and rightfully so, they want you up and walking right away. And now, I'm in a gym and I'm working out and I'm working,
mm,
working my bones and all of all that good stuff. I get to do that, as
yeah.
opposed to being in a wheelchair and staying on the couch. So hunt for the good.
Yeah, and that's the gratitude practice, right? That is the getting to is just being grateful for those small things
Mm-hmm.
that we take for granted,
Mm-hmm.
in our lives every day. And when you shift that mindset to one of gratitude, it's not woo-woo. It really does shift everything. And when you talk about happiness too, that whole we put so much stock or weight in another person around making that me happy. Well, is this relationship going to make me happy?
Mm-hmm.
If you're going into a relationship right like that with that
Yeah.
mindset, it's not going to work
It's not
out
going to work. It's not going
because
to
you're
work.
looking externally for this person to make you happy. If you aren't happy within yourself, how
Mm-hmm.
can you expect someone else to be able to do that for you? It just doesn't work that way.
Absolutely. It's like, and you have to show up. Like, if you want to go into another relationship, you want to show up whole. You
Yes.
want to show up healed. You, you one wouldn't want to go into a relationship carrying a lot of baggage. And
Mm,
I'm not saying that we're perfect because our whole conversation is about how imperfect we are.
yeah.
But one will want to go into another relationship having found some healing. How do you know that you're healed? You will have scars, but they don't devastate you. Um,
Yeah.
I knew a clue that I had found healing. I'm smiling, I'm laughing.
Yeah.
I'm not crying and breaking down and calling my best friend, girl. Do
I can't do
you
this.
know what happened? And so and so did this. Girl, you know what? No, that's not happiness.
Yeah,
Commitment,
exactly.
living in your misery, living, and you're going to go to your best friend because you want somebody to commiserate with you in your misery. But I need for you to be that friend that says, look, girl, get up.
Yes.
Girl, get up now.
Be your
We're
own best
going.
friend.
Yes, best friend. Tell them, let's go. We're
Y-
going out. We're going to do this. Girl, get up.
yes,
So the
exactly.
mindset shift is what you tell yourself, and in so doing, change your energy, change
Yeah.
how you view things. And I heard recently somebody said this. Let me see if I could say it accurately. That person was the reason for your transformation.
Mm,
You have the opportunity to be transformed. So instead of looking at your past as something, some people look at divorce with shame, some people look at it as regret, time wasted. Nothing's wasted. Nothing is wasted with God. All
yeah.
things work together for good. So I say that in the sense that that was the opportunity, the catalyst for you to be transformed.
Yeah. And, I believe that there's no wrong turns in life. I
Mhm.
believe that they're all lessons, that they are, whether it's a relationship, whether it's something that happens in our lives, it's a gift. It's a gift
Yes,
that is there to teach us something. And I do believe that's God's way of, you know, teaching us the lessons along the way. And we get back on track and we start looking inside for that love instead of externally. And that's where the relationship piece comes into play. I heard someone recently say on a podcast, the best gift that you can give someone in a relationship is when you say, I love you, but I don't need you.
yes,
And that is that, like, to me was like, yes, that's it.
yes,
Because the need is where things start to go wrong, and
absolutely.
what we need is right here.
And I
So
want to say, I want to pause for a moment and say, Crissy, you are the gift. And you are the gift because you're doing this podcast. And
mm,
so these things, the lessons that you have learned, and to be able to create from Mrs. to me, and to be able to share that with other women who are listening,
mhm.
that is your path. That is your passion.
Thank you.
That is the gift that you give out to the universe. And so, for your listeners, can you imagine coming to such a place, a space of healing
Mm,
that you then become the light for somebody else?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and you saying that, I mean, I have chills because that's why I do this. And that's why
Yeah.
you do your work, right? Is because
Yes.
if I can help one person, just one person, then that's the gift of this, because sharing our lessons that we learn along the way so that someone else can see it and say,
Yes.
oh, yes, that's
I can do
it.
this. I
I
can do
can do
this.
this. You got it. And it takes a village. It takes more,
Yes.
learning and along the way. And so that's what I hope this podcast does. So, and the work you're doing is the same. It's, getting out there and helping people to share their stories and helping them to heal and to hear on your podcast as well,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, those shifts and changes that they've made to transform their lives when they thought they just couldn't get up and take another day. So thank you for that. And one other question I did want to ask you is, because I've been running this last month sort of a
Mm-hmm.
series on financial overwhelm after divorce,
Mm,
and you talked about your house, and I think that was the perfect sort of segue to this. Is, there's a lot of fear in leaving a marriage,
mm-hmm.
especially when we think about becoming a single income, when we have been with someone else in a relationship, and we've been helping one another financially get through life as a parent, and we need that for a certain period of time, but it can be so overwhelming that
Mm-hmm.
it prevents women or men probably from moving forward and making decisions that are right for them because of the fear around financial overwhelm. Can you tell us more about how you navigated or are continuing to navigate the sort of scarcity mindset around money
Mm-hmm.
and so that you could get unstuck and move forward after divorce?
Absolutely. That is such a very real question. It's something that um, I would say is the basis for my staying as long as I did because I have two sons to raise.
Mm,
And how are you going to provide for your children? I didn't worry about me so much as my children. I have to, I've mentioned God a few times, and I just want to him all be glory. Because when I walked out, I didn't have a place to go, so I went to a hotel. The following day, I called up the church. And, very often there are seniors in our community, and they might be by themselves. And I rented a room. And here I am, a grown woman, a grown woman renting a room in somebody else's house.
mm-hmm.
But the I was in shelter within 48 hours of walking out. That was the first miracle. Then another miracle is, I'm trying to make a long story short, through a sequence of events. Let me talk about the current house I'm in. I am making enough income to pay my monthly bills, but I did not have money for a down payment.
Mm,
But when my auntie Sheila passed, my auntie, and I want to speak to people with families in terms of leaving legacies, this is the way you can make an impact. She left all of her nieces and nephews funds. And rather
mm.
than go on a shopping spree or travel all over the world, I took those funds. I had my down payment.
Ah,
Who else but God?
yeah,
In terms
exactly.
of aligning that. Getting back to the church in a day to day, the time I spent in the apartment, moving from the room in someone's house to an apartment before the house. In the apartment, there was a couple, and I had an experience in that church. They knew me, they knew our family. I was sleeping on the floor. I had no money for furniture. Um, they bought me a bed and they bought me a couch. They happen to be military, so they get it at a discount wherever
Yeah.
the military people go,
Wow.
at a commissary or what have you. That was their gift to me. So that
Mm,
was an angel showing up to me for me. Another person, again in my church, brought me dinnerware. Okay. So I had things in my kitchen, so literally angels, because of who I am, because people have known me for a long time, because they know my boys. There are people, no conversation, by the way. I didn't have to sit down and tell them, oh, this is why I left. It wasn't even necessary.
yeah.
It was like, knock at your door. Okay, I'm coming by. I only have a few minutes, drop it off. And I'm just like, tears running down. It's a very real thing. Um, and even in moving forward, all I could say is to be smart about money management. There was a point, 2009 ish, 2010, the banking industry collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I was still inside the marriage. Long story short, um, we had to file bankruptcy because if you were around an adult around that time, you understand the economic impact for families across this entire country. Okay. So I bounced back from that, and I had the ability to budget and set a
Yes.
priority. You have to live by a budget, what you can do and what you cannot. And I tend to think that as a woman, we are some creative people when it comes to budgeting and
Yes.
sharing childcare with another person in the community who has a need as well. Budgeting. And also, there's credit counseling bureaus that are out there. Every state has one, every municipality has one. They will walk you through credit counseling in order to navigate your way. And also schools, because as an educator, I know especially around the holidays and parents get antsy, how am I going to have Christmas?
Hmm.
Um, my first thought, just as a lesson learned, be modest in your Christmas.
Yes.
Because who told you you had to go spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars
No kidding.
for the kids? You know, who told you that? Why do you have to do that? Oh, they want that, but they want that because of their friends. Well, as I would tell my kids, well, you're not in your friend's house, you with me. Um,
Exactly.
but still, we want our kids to have Christmas and what all that means, and Christmas being gift giving. And so sometimes what the local elementary or middle school would do is they know of families, and they, are willing to anonymously, um, gift families either with food or clothing or something for Christmas. And then one more thing is, there are some locations where you can go and pick up free food, in terms of
Yes.
donations and bags of groceries. So when you're in that situation, you begin to see the resources that are available to you. There are
Yes.
resources out there, as opposed to like my parents' generation, for example, where they didn't have that.
They had none
My
of that.
generation, yes, there are resources that surround you. You just need to start with point A. And from point A, they're going to tell you about someplace else, and someplace else is going to tell you. And then it's like pulling a thread out of a fabric. And then suddenly you have tons of resources.
Yes, and thank you for sharing all those resources because I think that's important. And I don't think that's been shared here before. And I think that's really important for listeners who are out there and to ask for help. I think so many people sometimes we struggle, especially as women.
Pride.
And it's that pride thing of like, oh, I can't ask for help. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that because there's going to come a day where you're going to be asked for help or you're going to want to give help to someone else. I mean, that's just the way it
Yes.
works. And so many things I want to touch on that you said, but one of them was, you talked about yeah, these people who are just gifting things to you.
Mm-hmm.
And, I also believe that a lot of that was because of you were living in this mindset of, I get to do this. I get to do that. That is an abundance mindset. That is
Yes.
not a scarcity mindset. And that is where the mindset comes into play as well. I'm not saying it's the only thing, but as well. And things literally start to happen. And it's beautiful
Yes.
to watch it. And it's like, what? Someone just came to my door with this
Yeah.
like amazing, and it's a lot of it is because we're leading from this place of love and gratitude and that there is something to that, and that is where versus this scarcity around, oh my god, I don't have enough, what am I going to do? It's amazing when you just let go. It's that let
Yes.
go of control. It's that breathing into what is happening right here, right now. And look at this. I have a roof over my head.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it might be, that is when things start to shift and we start to see these beautiful gifts, like somebody showing up with a mattress or showing up with something else that you might need, on top of I can feel it already talking to you, your beautiful spirit that you
Thank
have, I'm
you.
sure people are drawn to as well. So it's all of those things. And so I think that is so beautiful, and it's not surprising that happened to you.
So I wanted to add this part, if I can. What you just talked about is control,
Hmm.
control versus surrender.
Yes.
Because when you separate, there's a issue of rejection that you're dealing with. There are issues of hurt and pain,
Mm,
and also whatever it is that's left over from when you were a little girl, the inner child.
yeah.
So it's like an onion, there are layers of thickness, and we want to control things. And when we want to control things and manipulate in our mind body spirit connection, we get tight and
Hmm.
we're angry all the time. And we want to get back, or we want to wish something bad would happen. And all of that is trying to get control because maybe you feel lost or you're floundering.
Hmm.
And Crissy, what you just described is surrender in
Yeah.
terms of the letting go.
Yeah.
Stop trying to manipulate somebody else's life. You're not with them anymore. So surrender.
Yes.
Surrender the need to control them and take responsibility for your life. And you know what you gain? Peace.
Yes.
Peace.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's what we
Peace.
all want at the end of the
Peace.
day is we want peace. And
Yes.
we want, that mind to stop, the control to stop, all of it to stop and to get
Peace.
that peace. And what you just said, that surrendering is where that peace comes into play when we let go of
Mm-hmm.
that story, of all those things, and just accept where we're at, take responsibility, and move forward. And use
Yes.
these things as an opportunity to do that. These events in our lives, like divorce, to do that. So,
Yes.
thank you so much. I feel like I could
Yes.
talk to you for so long. This was such a great conversation, and you are such a special human. And I love the work that you're doing. So, for
Thank you.
our audience, would you mind sharing how they can learn more about the work that you are doing and where they can find you?
Absolutely. So I always have to look down because I write it down for myself. But you can find me on IG about this life underscore Anne Marie. And Anne Marie, it doesn't have the hyphen in it on IG, or Anne doesn't have the E. So let me repeat, about this life underscore Anne Marie. My group on Facebook is called Becoming Enough. I just started the group. So,
Great.
I've had the podcast for like over a year now about this life, which, by the way, is available on Apple and Spotify. I'm up to 40 episodes. Woohoo!
All right. You are ahead of me, girl. I'm
Yes,
hitting
I'm going.
30.
Okay, but we in there, we in there. So those are three places. Facebook, it is Becoming Enough. On IG, About This Life underscore Anne Marie, all one word. And in terms of the podcast, I'm on Apple and I'm on Spotify. And there's so many stories there. So, yes.
Great. Oh, thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here. It really has been my pleasure. And I know the audience has gained so much from what you have shared. And For those of you out there, I do want to remind you to mark your calendars for Saturday, October 26th, when I will be hosting a retreat for women in Maine. Location is in Maine. It's not just for women in Maine, called Fall Into You. So stay tuned for more information that I will share here and on my website from mrs2me.com. And as I always say, you can't pour from an empty cup. So keep doing that inner work, and I'll see you here next time. Thank you, Anne Marie.
Okay, my pleasure.